I'm Edie Lush, and I'm here in the Hub Culture Pavilion in the Riviera Maya, and I'm really pleased to be joined now by Ricardo Anene, partner at A.T. Kearney. So tell me, one of the subjects here at the WEF is achieving sustainable growth for Latin America. What's your perspective on that?
I think that's one of the main challenges that we have been discussing throughout the years in Latin America, in the different countries, because Latin America is a set of diverse countries, with Mexico and Brazil having an economy of more than $1 trillion, and we have more than 13 countries with less than 500 billion. So basically, we have a lot of natural resources. The region generates more than 12% of oil and gas, iron ore, almost more than 10%. And in terms of agricultural products, we were very important, but you haven't seen that to transform in a wealth effect. So I think that the main topic to address it's basically productivity. How do you increase labor productivity? There's a very important correlation between labor productivity, the GDP per employee that you have in an economy, and the income per capita, what goes to the population. And I would like to tell you three different ways of addressing the issue of productivity. First, by the type of activities that leverage labor productivity. Human capital, in terms of people, their education, their training at their stage, that it's linked basically to the different sectors where they can really make a difference to generate a competitive advantage for where they perform and work. The other is the physical capital. You can have two people with the same level of education, but if you have capital stock, if you have machines, if you have, then that makes a whole difference. The other part is technology. The R&D, the innovation that you have really leverages the human capital stock that you might have. The infrastructure, which we're behind in most of the countries in terms of the gaps that we see. You can see it in the World Competitiveness Index. We're below we're in the places 50s or 60s, the best countries in Latin America. Communications and technology for the use of the population. There's a huge gap in terms of internet, broadband penetration, mobile, and that really makes a difference in terms of productivity, which you can see in the new generations, in the millennials. And
I was speaking to, just on that, I've been speaking to Ricardo Hausmann about exactly what you're talking about, how you increase productivity. And his argument is you have to connect people to networks, whether they're social networks, so other people, or whether they're physical networks, and roads, infrastructure, that kind of thing, telephones, electricity, and that's how you create this productivity.
Yeah, that's right, and you can see it with the new generation. I think the new generation it's a great example of how can you really achieve goals and transform the way of doing new ventures, new entrepreneurial activities, the way of communicating. Everything takes less time in a more productive and value-added way, and I think that's the specific transformation that we should be expecting. And how do you transform, for this productivity, how do you transform the status quo, which you can see when you link it to the new generations? The status quo, you transform it with entrepreneurial activity of the young generations. When you see the indices of entrepreneurial activity, the Latin American countries, Brazil and Mexico and Chile, are at the top of the Latin American countries, but they're in place 50 in the world.
So how do you do that? How do you encourage entrepreneurial activity in the rest of Latin America?
I think the ecosystems that you develop within the country, having all the stakeholders working together, government, private sector, individual, civil society, to really help them and fund their activities. If you see organizations like Endeavor, you see a lot of guys with 20, 23, 25 years old with great ideas, and many times the private equity funds or the venture capital funds or the development banks, they don't get in there to fund them because they don't generate 30% of return in the year. So we should go to really foster that activity. There's a very good level of activity but the scale is still very, very low.
The way I've heard it explained is that entrepreneurs, startups, increase the size of the pie.
Increase the size of the pie. I think that's what really can transform the incumbents. That basically, to make the economy more competitive, we need to make the economy more competitive. The market structures of the different sectors are highly oligopolistic, and that's not in the benefit of the population, the consumer. So I think this is the way that you will transform the way these power groups from the private sector, the government, will be transformed, but we have to move much, much faster. We cannot wait like another 3 or 4 generations, like South Korea did with education.
Okay.
They didn't wait for several generations. They empowered with training and education, but really shifting the curve in a few years, not to wait 3 or 4 generations for that labor productivity to transform the wealth effect of the economy in Latin America.
Thank you so much for joining me here at the Hub Culture Pavilion, and I'm Edie Lush.